You weren't born tired. You became tired from carrying too many invisible weights, burdens you never consciously chose. Jim Rohn once said, "It's not the blowing of the wind that determines your future, but the set of your sail." Somewhere along the way, life stopped being life and started feeling like a list of demands, of deadlines, of proving yourself to people who probably aren't even watching. And the strangest part? You don't even remember signing up for this version of life. You wake up already behind. You fight to keep up. And when someone says, life is hard, you nod in silent agreement, because it feels like the only truth that's ever consistent. But what if it's not the truth? What if life feels hard because no one taught you how to make it clear? Jim Rohn believed that clarity comes not from doing less, but from doing what truly matters. What if ease isn't about avoiding effort, but about applying your energy where it counts? Not in doing less, but in doing only what matters. This video isn't a quick fix. It's a reset. It's for those who are done with the noise, done spinning in circles, done trying to be everything, everywhere, for everyone. Because deep down you already know, something has to change. And you're not looking for some new productivity hack. You're looking for permission. Permission to breathe, to simplify, to live lighter. If life has felt like quicksand lately, Jim Rohn would remind you, you cannot change the seasons, but you can change yourself. And today, I'm going to show you a new way to walk through that storm. It starts with one simple shift. A shift that rewires how you think, act, and move. Not tomorrow. Now. We often think the weight we carry is just part of being alive. Deadlines, messages, unfinished tasks, expectations that never end. We tell ourselves, that's just how life is. But that isn't life. That's what happens when clarity is replaced by noise. Jim Rohn often reminded us that it's easy to get trapped by minor things and forget the major things. See, most people don't live complicated lives because they want to. They live complicated lives because no one ever taught them how to simplify from the inside out. It's not your to-do list that's the problem. It's the emotional clutter, hiding behind every yes you never meant to say. It's the decisions made on autopilot, the constant pressure to prove something, even when no one's really watching. And it's that silent fear that if you slow down, you'll fall behind. But here's the truth. An easier life doesn't come from escaping effort. Jim Rohn believed that the real magic happens when you align your effort with what actually matters to you. In this video, I'm going to show you that shift, one you probably already feel inside you, but maybe never fully understood or trusted. It's the shift from pressure to presence, from trying to keep up, to learning to let go of what was never yours to carry. This isn't about productivity, hacks. It's about reclaiming clarity before the world convinces you to numb yourself again. And if that resonates with you, welcome. You've just found your space to breathe, reflect, and rebuild. This is Rewired Focus. And if this feels like the kind of space you've been searching for, consider subscribing, not out of obligation, but because you're ready to stay closer to the version of you that's been waiting beneath the noise all along. Let's begin. There was a moment last year when I opened my eyes, looked around my apartment, and felt completely paralyzed. The room wasn't messy, but my mind was. Every surface looked fine. Nothing dramatic was wrong. And yet, something was definitely not right. I remember standing in the kitchen with a cup of coffee in my hand. It had gone cold, but I didn't notice until hours later. Because my body was present, but my mind was somewhere else entirely. I had a job. I had deadlines. I had things to do. But I didn't move. Because every next step felt heavier than the last. I thought I was just tired. I thought I needed a day off. But what I really needed was a new way to see what I was doing to myself. That was the day I asked myself the question that changed everything. What if life isn't hard because I'm weak? What if life feels hard because I'm chasing everything? But what actually matters? Jim Rohn once said, "Learn to say no to the good, so you can say yes to the best." That echoed in my mind as I realized I was making hundreds of tiny decisions every day that stole my clarity, drained my energy, and buried me in invisible weight, like accepting every meeting invite, saying yes to projects I didn't believe in, filling my evenings with mindless scrolling just to avoid feeling like I'd failed the day. On the outside, I looked productive. But inside, I was being driven by fear. Fear of disappointing. Fear of slowing down. Fear of being seen as lazy. So I overcompensated. I did more, thought more, worried more, and I still felt behind. That day in the kitchen, something shifted. I didn't plan a total life overhaul. I didn't quit my job or move to another city. I did something much smaller and far more powerful. I sat down, opened a blank page, and wrote one line. What do I actually want to give my energy to? Not what people expect from me. Not what looks good on paper. Not what makes me feel momentarily important. Just what actually matters. It was hard to answer. But I forced myself to list only 3 things. Not 10. Not 20. Just 3. And then, I circled the one that scared me the most. That became the center. Every other task, decision, or commitment had to orbit around that. And I'll be honest, it didn't feel natural at first. It felt reckless, like I was giving up too much. But something strange started happening. The anxiety didn't disappear overnight, but my mind started to quiet. Because for the first time in a long time, I wasn't reacting to life. I was responding to what truly mattered. Jim Rohn taught that the few who do are the envy of the many who only watch. That quote reminded me that doing less of what doesn't serve you is often the most courageous step you can take. I stopped answering emails at 11 p.m. just to feel useful. I stopped saying yes to every opportunity that made me feel busy. And most importantly, I stopped chasing things that made me feel safe, but stuck. And here's what I learned. Life doesn't become easier because you do less. It becomes easier when you finally stop doing what doesn't belong to you. Not everything that looks important is essential. Not every expectation is yours to carry. And not every version of success leads to peace. When I started building a life that was quiet on the inside, not just loud on the outside, everything changed. My schedule didn't shrink, but my focus got sharper. My to-do list didn't disappear, but my priorities stopped fighting for space, and I didn't become someone else. I just came back to who I was before life got noisy. If you've ever had a moment like that, where the silence in your mind felt louder than the noise around you, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. This isn't about doing nothing. It's about doing only what counts. And the truth is, most people don't need a new job, or a new life, or a new version of themselves. They just need to stop chasing what they were never meant to catch. The rest becomes easier. So, why does life feel heavy, even when you're doing everything right? The answer isn't just emotional, it's neurological, it's psychological, and it's deeply human. Jim Rohn used to say, "It's easy to carry small disciplines, but it's hard to carry regret." And that's exactly what's happening in our minds every day. Let's start with this. Your brain doesn't actually want to make life easier. It wants to make life predictable. It's wired to protect you from uncertainty. That means it will keep choosing what's familiar, even if that familiarity is draining you. This is why you keep saying yes to too much. Why you overthink things that don't really matter. Why you stay busy instead of being intentional. Because in your nervous system, busy feels safe, even if it's quietly breaking you. So, what does it take to reverse that? It starts with what Jim Rohn called the discipline of clarity over confusion. It starts with shifting from default mode to deliberate mode. And there are 3 simple tools that help you rewire that process from the inside out. Cognitive clarity, the priority filter. Your brain is making over 35,000 decisions per day, most of them unconsciously. That's why you feel mentally exhausted before lunchtime. But here's the good news. The majority of that mental energy is being wasted on decisions that don't matter. You're burning mental fuel on questions like, what should I wear? Should I reply to this email now? Is this task urgent or just loud? This is called decision fatigue. It's a well-documented phenomenon in cognitive psychology. And the solution? Jim Rohn called it the power of a well-set sail. You don't control the winds of life, but you absolutely control the direction of your focus. Before you start your day, ask, what 3 things would make today feel meaningful? Not productive, not efficient, meaningful. This question acts as a mental filter, pointing your focus only toward what truly moves the needle. You don't need to eliminate everything. You just need a compass, not a map. Micro-simplicity, how the brain responds to overwhelm. Let's get something clear. If you've ever stared at your to-do list and felt like crying, it's not laziness, it's cognitive overload. Your brain freezes when it encounters too much complexity. And the worst part? You blame yourself for it. But your brain was never built to hold a mountain. It's designed to take one simple step and then the next. This is where Jim Rohn's advice comes alive again. Success is nothing more than a few simple disciplines practiced every day. Instead of writing clean the house, you write put clothes in hamper, wipe kitchen counter, set 10-minute timer to vacuum. Your brain loves small wins. Each time you check something off, you release dopamine, the chemical that builds momentum and keeps you going. The task doesn't magically shrink, but the resistance to starting fades away. This isn't just productivity advice. This is neuroscience in action. Emotional energy management. We talk a lot about time management. We obsess over task management, but almost no one teaches us how to manage the most important resource we have, emotional bandwidth. You only have so much energy per day. And here's the painful truth. It's not hard work that drains you. It's not even failure. It's leakage. Unclear boundaries. Unfinished thoughts. Unmade decisions. Social pressure. Unspoken resentment. And that mental loop of, what if, playing all day long. If your energy is leaking silently, life will always feel hard, even when your to-do list is short. The fix? Jim Rohn would call this catching yourself in the moment of drift. It starts by creating checkpoints in your day. Every 3 to 4 hours, ask yourself, where is my energy going right now? If it's going to something that doesn't align with your values, pause, breathe, redirect. Energy, not time, is the real currency of your life. Wrap this together. Life feels hard not because you're broken, but because no one taught you how to protect your clarity, your focus, and your emotional fuel. The shift isn't about doing less. It's about doing only what matters and building your life around that. Your brain already craves this. It wants rhythm. It wants simplicity. It wants priority. It's just buried under patterns that no longer serve you. Once you start applying these principles, something powerful happens. You stop spiraling every time your day gets busy. You start responding to life instead of reacting to it. You begin to feel present, clear, and stronger than before. This is how ease begins. Not with escape, but with clarity. So many of us carry the weight of our lives as if we're being tested. As if ease must be earned. As if lightness is a sign of weakness. As if things must feel difficult to be meaningful. But what if we were wrong? What if struggle isn't the default? What if peace isn't the reward, but the foundation? You've spent years surviving noise, running toward expectations that were never truly yours, trying to build a future while quietly sacrificing the present. And somewhere along the way, you may have started believing that effort equals value, that if something didn't drain you, it wasn't worth it. But Jim Rohn often reminded us, don't mistake movement for achievement. And here's the deeper truth. Life becomes easier not when you do less, but when you stop doing what numbs you. Ease is not the absence of action. It's the presence of alignment. It's waking up and knowing that the things on your calendar aren't obligations. They're extensions of what matters most. It's walking into your day without rehearsing your worth in your head. It's saying no without apology. And it's allowing space in your life. Not because you're lazy, but because you finally become intentional. That's the shift. It starts small, with a choice, a pause, a question. Is this task aligned with what I value, or just familiar? Am I tired, or am I leaking energy through things I never chose? Is this version of success mine, or someone else's? These questions sound simple, but they hold power, because the moment you ask them, you stop living on autopilot. You begin to reclaim what was always yours, your focus, your time, your clarity, and as your days become more aligned, something unexpected happens. You start to notice beauty in stillness. You hear thoughts you used to ignore. You speak more slowly but with more certainty. You create not from pressure, but from presence. And when that shift takes root in your daily life, you'll experience what most people never do. That it was never the size of your responsibilities that made life feel heavy. It was the absence of clarity beneath them. Clarity is what makes weight feel light. Most people will keep chasing shortcuts, more hacks, more motivation. But as Jim Rohn taught, it's not what happens that determines your future. It's what you do about it. You don't need more fire. You need less friction. Let go of the unnecessary. Say yes to the essential. And choose to walk through life not with force, but with alignment. That's how you make life feel easy. Not perfect. Not problem-free. But light enough to carry and clear enough to love. So, take the shift with you. Not just as a thought, but as a new lens. A way of seeing. A way of living. Because when you live aligned with what matters, you stop surviving your life. And you start creating it. So many of us carry the weight of our lives as if we're being tested. As if ease must be earned. As if lightness is a sign of weakness. As if things must feel difficult to be meaningful. But what if we were wrong? What if struggle isn't the default? What if peace isn't the reward, but the foundation? You've spent years surviving noise, running toward expectations that were never truly yours, trying to build a future while quietly sacrificing the present. And somewhere along the way, you may have started believing that effort equals value, that if something didn't drain you, it wasn't worth it. But Jim Rohn often reminded us, don't mistake movement for achievement. And here's the deeper truth. Life becomes easier not when you do less, but when you stop doing what numbs you. Ease is not the absence of action. It's the presence of alignment. It's waking up and knowing that the things on your calendar aren't obligations. They're extensions of what matters most. It's walking into your day without rehearsing your worth in your head. It's saying no without apology. And it's allowing space in your life. Not because you're lazy, but because you've finally become intentional. That's the shift. It starts small, with a choice, a pause, a question. Is this task aligned with what I value, or just familiar? Am I tired, or am I leaking energy through things I never chose? Is this version of success mine, or someone else's? These questions sound simple, but they hold power, because the moment you ask them, you stop living on autopilot. You begin to reclaim what was always yours, your focus, your time, your clarity. And as your days become more aligned, something unexpected happens. You start to notice beauty in stillness. You hear thoughts you used to ignore. You speak more slowly, but with more certainty. You create not from pressure, but from presence. And when that shift takes root in your daily life, you'll experience what most people never do. That it was never the size of your responsibilities that made life feel heavy. It was the absence of clarity beneath them. Clarity is what makes weight feel light. Most people will keep chasing shortcuts, more hacks, more motivation. But as Jim Rohn taught, it's not what happens that determines your future. It's what you do about it. You don't need more fire. You need less friction. Let go of the unnecessary. Say yes to the essential. And choose to walk through life not with force, but with alignment. That's how you make life feel easy, not perfect, not problem-free, but light enough to carry and clear enough to love. So, take the shift with you, not just as a thought, but as a new lens, a way of seeing, a way of living. Because when you live aligned with what matters, you stop surviving your life, and you start creating it.